I'm Richard Gearhart, founder of Gearhart Law, a full-service intellectual property law firm.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart, not an attorney, but I work at Gearhart Law doing the marketing and other things.
Welcome to Passage to Profit, the show that's all about entrepreneurs, small businesses, and the intellectual property that helps them flourish. Today, we have something that we've never had on the show ever, ever, ever. And it's Dave Albin, and he is a firewalker, and he's going to tell us all about it.
Amazing. Yeah, I got to hear this. And then Courtney Peebles with Solobo. So these are special toys for kids. And I think they're unlike other toys that are on the market there. And they're really worth checking out at her website. We'll talk about that later. And then Alex Neist with hostage tape. No, it's not what you think.
I'd heard the name, but I didn't actually think about it until you mentioned it.
All
But
I'm gonna say
it could
is
be a lot of things, right?
mouth breathers beware.
Right.
Okay, so
So I guess before we get to our distinguished guests, it's time for IP in the news. And of course, today we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. And it's really been a big topic now in the intellectual property world. All sorts of AI programmers are trying to get intellectual property protection for the inventions that their software creates. And so we have here Mr. Stephen Thaler from Missouri, who has a software program called Dabus, and he claims that Dabus is sentient, which I
right.
guess means that it's got human characteristics.
He says, and I quote, there is a new species here on Earth, and it's called Davis. I think it's Davis or Davis. I don't know. But I do want to give intellectual property credit for this article. So it was from Wired, and it was written by Will Bedingfield, who's a staff writer at Wired. So,
And so the whole story is really about how intellectual property inventorship rights, ownership rights are being challenged in the courts because right now all of the laws say you have to be a human being in order to get a patent or a copyright. And of course, there's a lot of people out there now with AI who are challenging that. And I think it's really interesting. It's kind of scary to me because I think if you have AI, the number of inventions and creations you can come up with is almost infinite, right? And so you would have all of these machines that would sort of own all the new ideas. And to me, that just seems kind of, it would be a big challenge for us.
but part of the problem too with AI is that it doesn't just start with nothing. It goes through the internet and takes other people's work and then makes new work out of it, but it's still using other people's work.
Right. And that's one of the big challenges with copyright works because the AI software goes and looks at all the other artists' works that are online, and then it combines them using software, and it comes up with a new creation that looks a lot like the old creations, right? And there's a lot of artists who are getting upset about this.
Right. So it's going to have to be litigated in the courts, I guess. But I don't think AI's reached personhood yet.
We
For
hope not.
instance, well,
I mean, when was the last time you felt sorry for an AI uh, uh, description from ChatGPT?
can an AI do a firewalk?
There you go. I think that's the ultimate question. So anyway,
I don't think so.
I guess the moral of the story is watch what you put into ChatGPT. We'd like to ask our distinguished guests what they think about this phenomena. Dave, thanks for joining us on the show.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think my position as far as what I do, I think I'm pretty safe. I don't think anybody's going to come out there and replace me anytime soon. What I do find interesting is that if I want to promote my company or I want to write content or whatever, I know that I can go out there and use AI and it can create some really interesting content. So that we could add to the website or letters or whatever it is. So, but from a physical standpoint of what I do for my clients, I've got no worries.
Have you ever thought about maybe doing like a virtual firewalking? Where somebody puts coals down in their backyard and you talk them through it on Zoom. Would that work?
Nope. Nope. I don't want to see the on the 11 o'clock news, Firewalk Adventures. The thing about it is that I'm there for the specific reason. We do things three ways: safe, safer, and safest. So with that in mind, if I'm not there to control the temperature, because when I lay the coals on the grass, which is what they walk on, I can bring the temperature down by hitting the coals with a shovel. So every time I hit the coals, pat them down.
So the virtual thing just isn't going to work for you.
We did a board break. And we were pretty successful at that. Okay. Tony Robbins does one too. He does a board break and he sends the boards out to the people, and there's instructions and the setup and so on. Okay. So that I think you can get away with.
Sure. So Courtney, what do you think about Chat GPT, AI, and all of these other new phenomena getting intellectual property protection?
Yeah, so my husband, Daniel, he actually has taken classes on AI because he just is very interested in it. So I hear a lot from him about it. But he actually, we have used ChatGPT in different scenarios, but, in this case where they're claiming like intellectual property, I think it's interesting because there's one particular AI platform that's an image generation platform, and you can actually load in an image and ask it to like reverse engineer it. So it gives you the prompt, and in the prompt, it has different artists. So I can understand how these artists are getting mad because in the prompt is their name. And that's kind of what's building the image. So I think that walks a really fine line. And in cases like that, I don't really know how there's much grounds to get intellectual property because it's based off of somebody else's work. I think there's so much gray area. I do think though that it is very helpful in some scenarios, like website builders now have it infused into the platforms, and that can help with writing copy. But as far as intellectual property goes, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they battle it out in court, because that's kind of going to be setting the tone for everything that comes after that.
You make some interesting points, and I'm just going to play devil's advocate a little bit here and say, as an intellectual property person, I think most new creations are based on something that somebody has already done.
That's right? True. Yeah.
So that's one argument that the AI people have, is that, other artists create art by having looked at other paintings, right?
Yeah.
And so, but there's something about them. I'm not sure that there's really the creative spark that goes into that. It seems more of it's just like an algorithm.
Right. I was going to say, I don't think it will ever be the creativity of somebody coming up with something really new, because people that are true creators, they don't care as much. I mean, they want to make money from what they're doing. They have to support themselves. So they want the IP rights, but they know they can always create something new.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, Alex, welcome to the show. What are your thoughts on this?
So help me understand with your question or the situation. Was it that a person versus a machine actually owning IP? Was that the debate, the issue?
So the person who, all right. So the machine created it. The person would own it.
Right.
Right. So the owner would be different than the person who created it.
But this guy thinks that the AI is sentient and should be able to own it.
That's what I think is interesting. I have a problem with that. I don't that's the fear that we all have, right? As we create AI and it continues to evolve, it's in the movies, right? It's Terminator. It's where is this going to end up? How far is it going to go? So do we really want to give agency to AI and the machines to actually own IP? I don't think we do, because who knows where that leads. So
Yeah, those are really good points. And I actually think that it's really more of a matter of Congress making these decisions, even
Oh
though,
boy, that'll never
yeah,
happen.
that'll never happen. But if we're going to be completely theoretical about it, it does seem like the courts aren't really in a position to kind of consider all of the big social issues. I mean, they're just looking at the law and they're saying, this is what the law says. And according to the law, this is the outcome you're supposed to get. Whereas I think you need broad social input on this in order to come to the best decision. Of course, with our Congress, who knows if that would ever happen. But I think that's really the place where theoretically it should be decided anyway. So I guess the moral of the story is we don't know what's going to happen with AI and AI creations and who's going to own the copyrights and the patents that come from it. So I guess we just have to live in limbo and wait for somebody to make some more decisions on this. So anyway, Dave, welcome to the show again. Thanks for being here. And as we all know already, you're a Firewalk instructor. The first thing anybody asks is, how did you get into the firewalking business?
Well, I went to my first Tony Robbins seminar in 1995. 7 years prior to that, I had joined Alcoholics Anonymous. And so on June 8th of 88, I woke up that morning and I'd hit threshold. I was done. I'm out. I can't live like this anymore. I was in a tremendous amount of physical and emotional pain. And so my first thought was, well, I can end this by putting a bullet in my head. Well, thank goodness I was married to a woman who had 3 kids who were my stepkids. And as I'm contemplating that, I'm like, you know what? You can't do that, man. Because you may have solved your problem, or at least you think you have, by putting a bullet in your head, but you're going to kill those 3 kids, and you can't do that. So figure out another way, pal. And so the next thought I had was call Alcoholics Anonymous. And you know what's interesting about that moment was I had no idea who AA was. I didn't know anybody in AA. I'd never been to AA, and yet there was the thought. So I did. I called AA and I got a wonderful woman on the phone. I've nicknamed her Madge over the years. And the reason is because she talked like this. So she probably smoked. Right? She probably smoked 2 packs of Pall Mall non-filters a day. And anyway, I gave her, she was the gatekeeper basically. And it was her job to decide whether they would send somebody to come pick you up, which she did. And so I went to my first AA meeting on June 8th of 1988. And this last June 8th of 2023, I celebrated 35 years. So what happened?
Your liver celebrated 35 years.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. I've got a really good liver, I can tell you.
How did this lead to firewalking?
Right. So what happened was that because when I was getting sober, I had insomnia and I was up late at night all the time. And I'm up late one night and there he is. Mr. Enthusiasm himself in 1988, a young Tony Robbins is selling personal power. It's a 30-day program. And though I didn't really like Tony, he was pretty pompous and he's all motivated and I wasn't. But he said 2 things that got me. First thing he said was, we'll do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure. Well, heck, that's why I was drinking and drugging. Well, I was chasing, some kind of pleasure and trying to avoid pain. So that made sense to me. And then what really got me though, is he said, the way we make decisions is where we make them out of inspiration or desperation. And I was pretty desperate. So I bought his program. And it was a 30-day program, came in a big box, came on these little white things called cassette tapes.
I remember those.
Do you remember those? Right.
So did the program work, or did it just drive you crazy and make you want to walk on fires?
I did what the man told me to do, and it worked.
That's great.
So one of my buddies in AA, I loaned the program to. 7 years later, in 1995, he calls me on the phone and said, "Hey, did you know Tony Robbins is coming to town?" I said, "I had no clue." And he said, "Are you available on such and such a date? You're going with me. You got me into this. You got to go with me." So I agreed. And he called me back like an hour later and he said, "Done. Everything's taken care of." They told us to Drink a lot of water, stay hydrated, bring snacks. We're going to spend a lot of time in the room.
So
And he
did
said,
you
and bring
know,
a good.
did you know you were going to firewalk at that
No,
point?
that's it. No, I had no idea. That,
But
in
you
fact,
did,
that was the
right?
point. Well, he said, you know, bring a good attitude and be ready to play full out. And I said, well, how much was the ticket? He said $695.
Well, you
This
have
is
a
in
lot of plan out.
1995,
Whoa.
right? I mean, what's that equate to today? I don't know, 7.2 million. I don't know. So, you know, buy Bitcoin.
So we're
So-
still waiting to see how you got
Right.
into
So
the firewalk thing.
at the
okay?
very end, he's getting ready to hang up and he goes, oh, wait, by the way, I left out the best part. We're going to be doing a firewalk. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. I don't know what firewalk means. I have no references for that. But my brain's going, no, absolutely not. We're not doing any of that. But I'm not saying this to Dan. I don't want him to think I'm a coward, right? And I'm going along with it. I'm just being subservient to him, right? I'm like, yeah, sure, Dan, great. All right, firewalk, yeah, see you then. Well, the big day comes. We get to the event. Tony takes the stage at 2:00 in the afternoon. Next thing I know, it's after midnight. I've been in a room for 10 hours along with 3,500 other people. And all of a sudden, Tony goes, take your shoes off. I'm like, oh, no. I know. I see where you're going with that.
3,500 feet you're going to be smelling, right?
Right. Yeah. I was like, no, you're not tricking me into that. Well, here's the dilemma. I'm sitting in a room with 3,500 people. Guess what they're doing? They're taking their shoes off.
Oh my
So now I've got to take mine off, right? Or otherwise everybody's going to go, hey, look at the guy walking out there with his shoes on. Well, it gets worse because when he gets everybody going out there, he gets everybody to start clapping and chanting. So now everybody's walking out, 3,500 people going, yes, yes. And I'm walking out there going, no, I ain't doing it. Well, it gets worse. Because when you get outside into this giant parking lot where they facilitate the firewalk, he's got African drummers, right? So now it's dun, 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 dun. It's a dog and pony show like anything you've ever seen. Well, so my strategy, I'm just going to go hide in the back. Well, when you get out there, there's a giant fire over in the corner. It's huge. It's like 35 feet wide, 70 feet long. It's been burning all day and it renders. They just keep adding hardwood to it all day long. And it's the biggest, beautiful pile of blue coals you've ever seen in your life.
Ew.
Well, how they facilitate that is they take a bunch of wheelbarrows over to that pit. They load the coals in wheelbarrows. Then they bring a wheelbarrow in between 2 lanes of sod, of grass. That's 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. And they sprinkle the coals on top. And that's what you walk on. Well, I'm hiding in the back. I'm not having any of this. Well, Tony Robbins knows this is one of the most life-changing paradigm shift experiences on earth. And he also knows there's a bunch of cowards just like me that are going to go hide in the back. So what's he do? He trains people to come find you. And that's exactly what happened. I'm back there minding my own business thinking I got it all figured out. Here comes this guy out of nowhere, gets probably 20 feet from me, and he kind of looks at me, you know, with a puzzled look on his face, right? Like a dog that hears a funny noise. And he looks at me and he goes, hey, man, are you okay? And when we're not okay, what do? We lie. Right? I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good, man. All good here. Move along. You know, nothing to see here, pal. And all of a sudden he said, well, hey, man, you going to walk tonight? And I said, absolutely not. Like, did you not get the memo? And then here's what's interesting. This guy's a total stranger. I don't know who this guy is today. But if it wasn't for him, I'm not sitting here right now on this podcast. And he said, well, wouldn't you at least like to watch? And I thought, yeah, let's do that. Let's go watch these people burn their feet off. This will be entertaining. And he said, hey, man, you're not going to be able to see anything from way back here. And he's right. I'm 100 yards away. I can't see anything. I can hear it. The drums are going. People are chanting. People are already walking and they're screaming in the celebration and jumping up and down because they had accomplished this, but I can't see any of it. Bottom line is I got up to the front of the line and with the help of one of Tony's people, he got me across. And it was one of the most life-changing experiences that I've ever gone through. And where it got interesting was the next day. I came into the event. I'm in a foyer. We're getting ready to go into the venue. And I'd never seen or witnessed people get along like this in my entire life. They were laughing, crying, connecting, hugging. It was magnificent.
So what
Well,
is
I
it?
found out that Tony uses a lot of volunteers. I filled out an application for that volunteer position and I got chosen. And so the next thing I know, I'm at a Tony Robbins seminar as a volunteer. And because of my background, I was on a farm and I knew how to use tools. They put me on the fire building team.
There you go.
Shortly after crewing, say 5 or 6 times, they offered me a position as a subcontractor to work on the fire team. I also had a military background, a security background, so they put me on the security detail, helping take care of Tony's celebrities.
That's
That
awesome.
all went down.
Yeah, I mean, that's
that all-
awesome. But we gotta hear a little bit about what you're doing with your clients now. So, and why this changes people's lives. I mean, you
Yeah.
obviously have the credentials, you went through the process, you were reluctant at first, but what does it actually do? And then where do people come to do it and all that, like all the stuff that goes with the business part?
Well, depending on the size of the event, we can do them in hotels, out in parking lots. I have a lot of people come to my house privately, celebrities and so on. The bottom line is in 2014, I took over all of Tony's Firewalks in 03.
Oh,
In 05, we set the world record in London, 12,300 people. 2014, Google called me and said, "Are you the Dave Albin that does the Firewalks for Tony Robbins?" Yes, I am. What can I do for you? We'd like to hire you if you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete. Next thing I know, Google's hiring me. And that's when the light bulb went off. That's when Firewalk Productions was born, 2014. And then from there, from Google, I went to NASA, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, Chick-fil-A, Microsoft, Heineken. They all started hiring me to come in and create this paradigm shift experience. And
so I gotta ask you, Dave, if Microsoft hired you to do it, say, do they make their employees do it? Like if you really
No.
don't, oh, okay.
no,
That's
no,
good.
there's, and I'm really clear on the
You're
pre-frame.
walking on that.
We have some poor performers here, and we have this Firewalk guy coming next month.
Yeah.
And if things don't improve,
Yeah.
But what is it about
Right.
the experience? What is it about the experience, though, that is so life-changing?
Well, again, if you look at it, if you study it and you go look at it, it's been around 1,000 years. So the Tahitians and the people of India and the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, the Native American Indians, they've been using it for years as a rite of passage. Tony brought it in because he knew that's a 4-day event he does, right? He does that on day one, the evening of, because he knows going into the next day, you can tell yourself, okay, if I can walk on coals that are 1,000 degrees and not hurt myself, not burn myself, what else can I do? So he's attacking fear and he's creating the new paradigm shift, right? So how do we deal with fear? You go from forget everything and run to face everything and rise. Or as we say in AA, false images appearing real. And that's the leverage point. It's one of the most, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Again, that evening when I did Tony, you ought to have seen it. It's such a beautiful thing to watch because people go, tell you where you can go Google Oprah's Firewalk and you'll see it. You can see the moment before she walks and what she's going through. And 4 seconds later, her whole life transforms. She literally walks over, the cameras go with her, and she makes one of the biggest business decisions of her life right there on camera. She created what's called the next chapter. So, again, it's just one of the most transformational experiences that's out there. Very rite of passage.
So does the experience stay with somebody for
Yes.
a long time?
Absolutely.
That's something that, because you can go to a motivation seminar,
Yep.
right? And you can get all fired up and you
Yep.
can be fired up for the next day, maybe. But then, life takes over. But this is truly life-changing.
It is. And it stays with you because, people come to my events all the time and they may forget what I said. They'll forget what I did. They forget my name, but they never forget how I made them feel in that firewalk. And I also add the board break to it. So I create the rite of passage with the board breaks. Martial arts, right? They break boards all the time. If you go from one belt to another, you'll break a board with your hand or your foot or your knee or your elbow, whatever. So I take the board break and I have them write something on front of the board they want to move towards. I have them write something on back of the board they need to move away from. I have them write anybody's name on that board they're in conflict with. So if forgiveness and reconciliation is part of that relationship, it ends tonight. stop, get that name on the board. And then to create the rite of passage, I have them write anybody's name on the board that they've lost. So we go out. I just came back from MIT in Boston. I had 60 some COOs at this event, did this exact process. They break the board. We walk them in a circle. We did the firewalk. They add their board to the fire. We get it on video. We get it pictures of it. And then at the end of the event, we give them one of these. And basically, it's the coals from the firewalk. So now they can put that on their desk and they can see that on a daily basis and reflect upon it.
So I have show notes here on what we could talk about with you. And it looks like your kids did the firewalk. Is that true?
They did.
So how old were they?
My daughter was 6. My son was 9.
So what did they get out of it?
And if you talk to them today, you know exactly. It's empowering. And that's a beautiful thing. I love doing kids. You know, when we were at a Tony event in New York, Tony knew that my kids were going to walk that night. We walked all the participants, probably 6,000 of them. And then they were over in the shadows. And as soon as he was ready, Tony, you know, waved him over. Here comes my daughter, you know, 6 years old, completely fearless.
Wow.
You know, Tony took her by the hand. I took her by the hand. We walked her. My son stepped up. He was 9. Tony looked at him and said, I love you and I love your daddy. Go. And my son took off. Now, they had spent about an hour or so with one of Tony's trainers to get him ready for that. But yeah, I've walked hundreds and hundreds of kids.
So
and it's one of the most powering things you can do for a child. Break that board, do a firewalk for a 9-year-old kid. They'll remember it forever.
So I got to follow up with this. So if you have adults that are hesitant or afraid to do it,
yeah,
it's just like, hey, my 9-year-old did it.
Well, and that's really interesting. I do a lot of events for EO, the Entrepreneurial organization. And so they ask me all the time, can we bring our family? Can we bring our kids? Absolutely. And so all the adults, we did Philadelphia here last year at EO. And one of the very first families to walk was the person who was my contact for EO. And her son walked. And I think he was probably 10 or 11. And all the adults looked at it like, oh, great. The 11-year-old does it. So now I got to do it.
Now,
right.
Now my reputation is on the line too. So can you screw one of these walks up though? I mean, if you're not prepared for it.
Oh, sure you could. If you didn't know what you were doing, you're not using the right wood.
So if just anybody goes out there and makes a fire and they try to walk on it, that would be dumb, right? Because they are not prepared for it.
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, you definitely, there's a lot that goes into that. You have to use the right wood, has to make sure that it's either kiln drying or dried or it's, you know, it's been cured. So, and you have to use hardwoods, you have to use oak or locust or hickory. And, you know, you certainly wouldn't want to use pine. Pine's very sticky. You go walking on pine, it's going to stick to your feet.
Don't try this at home, kids.
Don't try this at home, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. We'll be back with more firewalking information and advice with Dave Albin. You're listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, and we'll be back after this commercial. Okay.
Wow.
That was fun.
So I think maybe for the next half, Dave, I want to kind of get into how did you choose firewalking and what would have been some of the challenges as an entrepreneur? Because this is really this is a very different type of business than we normally feature.
Right.
But it'd be interesting, how are the challenges for this the same as any business or different than other businesses?
I think it's different.
Yeah. So
I mean,
hold those thoughts. No, wait, hold those thoughts. Because we're not doing, I have to bring us back. So,
okay, so why don't you bring
we'll ask that. So do you want to ask Dave that when we come back?
No, you just asked him. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, listeners. You are listening to Passage to Profit, the Road to Entrepreneurship with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart and our special guest, Dave Albin. Now, Dave is unlike any guest we've ever had on the show before.
I think he's on fire.
He's on fire.
He's on fire.
He is a fire walker, and he's been explaining how people walk over these 1,000-degree coals without getting burned and how impressive it is and everything. But
and I think they curl their toes, right? You curl your toes when you're walking across.
No, because if you do that, if you curl your toes when you're walking, you can pick up the coals with your
Oh,
toes.
wow, 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 wow. That would hurt.
that
But
would be
what
hot.
what I want to ask Dave now is, as an entrepreneur, are there similarities to other businesses, or are there things about this that are really different that makes it kind of hard to have a business like this? Because we're all about entrepreneurs and solving their problems here, right?
Well, yeah, it's really a combination of both. I mean, the reason I started Firewalk Productions is I was driving down the road in 2014 and Google called me and they said, "Hey, are you the Dave Albin that does a firewalk for Tony Robbins?" Yeah. Well, what's up? And they said, "Well, if you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete, we'd like to talk to you about hiring you." Well, they wanted to do the firewalk in the middle of the day. And I said, "No, absolutely not. I've got to be able to see those coals at night. It's a safety issue. We won't do it." Tell you what we could do. We could do a glass walk. They're like, "A glass walk? We can walk it on broken glass?" Yeah, absolutely. And they go, "Ooh, tell us about that." So that's how I ended up going to Google. That's how I went to Mountain View. We did two glass walks for Google. In fact, it was one of the executives that was there that was going through the graduation. She's the one who told me, "Hey, you should probably think about starting your own business because there's a huge marketplace for paradigm shift experiences, and you're the guy. You're at the top of the game. So, I know you work for Tony, and I'm sure that's really great. But anyway, you may want to think about it."
So
Well,
what
heck,
are
if
what are
Google's
your
going to tell
biggest-
you to start a business, maybe you should listen.
Yeah, no kidding. But what are your biggest challenges? Obviously safety, right? That's
Yeah.
probably your number one.
What's interesting is that once somebody looks at who I am and they go, "Okay," in fact, I had a client one time that flew me out. They wanted to talk to me before they hired me. And I got out there in the boardroom and the CEO said, "Hey, we got Dave Albin here. We want to firewalk 350 of our sales and marketing people. Who's got any questions?" Well, the corporate attorney was sitting right there. And he goes, "I got a question. How many of our people are going to get burnt?"
Are
And
we
I said,
going to
"Well,
get
that's
sued for this? That's the question.
right. It's a fair question." And I said, "Well, to properly answer that, let me ask you something. How many of you have ever taken your family to the beach or to a pool or to a lake and got them sunburned?" They all raised their hands. Well, that's 100 times more dangerous than any firewalk you're ever going to do with me. And
So
as
it's
soon as I
maybe-
said that, the CEO spoke right up. He goes, "Hey, Mr. Albin, we made a big mistake hiring you, or excuse me, bringing you here," is what he said. "We made a big mistake." And without even blinking an eye, he turned to the CFO who was sitting right there and he said, "Look, if this guy's good enough for Tony Robbins and he's good enough for Google, he's good enough for us. Book him."
Wow. Well, so it's then probably your biggest challenge is the perception.
It is perception. Absolutely. 100%. Because they think somebody's going to get hurt because it sounds so dangerous. Well, I've walked 500,000 people in my career. Has anyone ever been to the hospital? Nope. Have we ever been sued? Nope. Knock on wood. But it's, what's dangerous? Put your kids in soccer. That's
Yeah,
dangerous.
they could really get hurt that way.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
So,
The worst case scenario.
yeah.
The worst case scenario is you get a little blister on the bottom of your foot and you put a little Sensodyne on it or a little Neosporin, in a day or 2 days, it's gone. That's the
Right.
worst case scenario. In
Right.
fact, that's why I tell people to go watch the Oprah Firewalk, because
Right.
Tony literally says to her, because Oprah's losing it, man. She is not real thrilled about this firewalk. She's scared to death, just like most people are. And Tony turns to her and he said, "Look, Oprah, what's the worst that could happen? Burn your feet off and die? Come on. I'm not going to let you get hurt." And that's the moment. And that's all she needed, was that a little bit of encouragement, which is interesting because that's kind of a metaphor for life,
Yeah.
Yeah.
for
especially as
sure.
an entrepreneur. We need a little bit of encouragement. And a lot of times that doesn't come from our family.
Right. So we got to squeeze some questions in here.
So
Rich.
anyway, so I guess what I was kind of curious about is, are there other things that you can walk over that are dangerous besides glass and fire? I mean, like, you see these swamis with the nail boards, right? That they lay down on this bed of nails, right? So have you thought about trying that one?
I get it. That's, it's physics, because you're dispersing your weight over a whole lot of nails. When you firewalk and you look down and those coals are bright red, and
Ouch.
fight or flight kicks in. It's that simple. And so that's why it's such an extraordinary experience, because when you get to the other side, that's what happened to me. I was like, I walked on coals, that were 1,000 degrees. I didn't burn myself. And so now when I was in that celebration and down there with 3,500 people, we were all, you know, it was like, okay, where's the bus? Let's go climb Mount Everest. What's next? I mean, literally, that's, you know, that's what it does. It creates that kind of, you know, just your self-worth, your self-confidence, your self-belief just goes through the roof.
So can you tell something about somebody based on the speed at which they walk through the fire pit? Are the slow walkers, do they have a certain personality versus the speedy ones?
Nope.
No?
Some people get there, and I teach a couple different ways. I'm like, look, you can do this like the Cherokee Indians did it, right? You just put your hands in the air and you look up, you believe, you trust, and you walk at a normal pace. Or you can go MMA style, right? MMA fighter style, where you scream yes 3 times really intensely, and you throw your arms in the air and you scream yes, and your body takes over, because your body's like, okay, fight or flight, what's going on? Releases all the chemicals, and you storm across the coals. Now, when I say storm, I do tell people don't run. You can walk fast if you want, but do not run, because if you trip and you fall on those coals, that's not going to be pleasant.
Has anybody ever face planted on the coals?
Not at any of my events, no, because
Thank
I
God.
walk with all of them.
Yeah.
So when they're walking, I'm going with them, and I'm right there. So if one was to trip, I can catch them. And then I stop them at the end. I put my hand in their solar plex and I stop them, and then I tell them, stop, wipe your feet and celebrate, because I want them to anchor it in immediately.
Yeah.
So are they watching the fire coals while they're watching, or are you
Some
looking
do.
straight ahead?
Great question. Some do, some don't. Some people look up, because when they're staring down at it, that's when I tell them to eyes up. Get your eyes up. Don't stare at what you fear. Look to the celebration end. That's where the reward is.
How long is the walk?
The beginner walks, I typically lay them out about 15 to 18 feet, which means it lasts about 4 seconds.
Okay. Wow.
Now, advanced firewalking, we've done 100-foot firewalks. We do a graduation. It's called a 108, which basically we build 3 lanes that are about 15 feet long. We build a fire in the middle, and then we walk each lane 1 time, and we walk it 107 times. And then at the end, we stretch it out to 20 feet. And that's the 108 for the final walk. So you're literally firewalking for about an hour. And we do that on the Big Island of Hawaii.
Wow.
But that's advanced. That's way over on the other side.
Work your way up to that by doing a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always another level, right?
Yeah.
And you know, people are capable of just about anything. When I do my talks, I put a picture of a guy on the screen behind me. His name is Eric Weinmeier, and you know, the picture is him. He's standing on the top of Mount Everest, and I'll ask the people, so who here can tell me where my buddy Eric's standing? And somebody will go, he's on the top of Mount Everest. Great. Here's what else you need to know. That man right there climbed the 7 highest mountains on Earth, all 7, got to the summit, 7 continents. Put him on a mountain bike, he'll tear it up. Put him in a kayak, he can probably navigate just about any river on Earth. But here's what you need to know about Eric. He's blind. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Anything you've told yourself of why you think you can't do something is probably a lie. Because if a blind man can climb the 7 highest mountains on Earth, what do you think you could do if you put your mind to it?
Wow.
Well, that's a really powerful message. What other things do you tell people who are in the fire walking preparation stage to kind of motivate them and help them sort of get ready for the experience?
Well, that one thing of showing them Eric, that here's a blind man that can climb the 7 highest mountains on Earth. One of the things I tell people is I believe that, and one of my mentors told this to me, and I've never forgot it. And basically what he said to me, he said, you know, every human on Earth has 2 lives. And the second one starts when you realize you have only one. So those are the kinds of things that I share with the clients, because every client's got something going on, right? Typically, there's 3 types of clients that are going to call me. Number one, the company's breaking down. Things are really bad. Everybody's crashing and arguing, and obviously the political system that all hit back in March of 2020, mask and vaccines and political and everybody arguing, that tears a company apart. It shreds them, because if two people aren't getting along and they're on a production line, guess what? Production goes down, and every CEO, him or her, knows they better fix it, because if they don't, then the profitability goes down, and the shareholders aren't going to like that. Matter of fact, I just came back from an unbelievable, I was just spent 2.5 days at the Zippo lighter company. And so I have a little lighter here, and I use this to light the fire, and I hashtag Zippo every time I do it. Well, they brought me out. They wanted to meet me. And what a story that George Blasdell did. He started the Zippo lighter company during the Depression. And he also started it and said it's going to have a complete 100% money back guarantee. If it ever breaks, you send it back to us. We'll fix it, and we'll pay to ship it back to you. And so that's how he started the company, which is pretty gutsy if you think about it.
Yeah.
But that's, and I'm walking around and I'm in the plant and I'm meeting all these people. The one gal that I met this next week, she's been working for Zippo for 58 years. Who does that? And I met a ton of people that were there 30, 40 years. So obviously they're there because they were very well treated. And so that's a beautiful thing. I think was it Richard Branson that said, don't concentrate on the customer, focus on your people, because it's your people that take care of the clients for you. And I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah. So one kind is where the company's falling apart. What's the second kind of company that would hire you?
Second kind of company is things are mediocre. Things aren't really good. Things aren't really bad. They're kind of in the middle, and they need to break out of that. And then the other is, they're kicking butt. We're rolling. Everything's going along unbelievably, and they want to shift it up and take it up another notch. So it's typically one of those three. Things are completely bottomed out. They're in the middle, or they're at the top of their game.
So it's everybody. In other words.
Pretty. It is, because when they get to me, I got to ask the CEO, what's going on? Tell me what's happening. Are you launching a new product? Is it vision statement time? You're changing your mission. I mean, what's going on? You tell me what it is, and we'll custom design the Firewalk around what's going on in your company at that time, at that moment.
Well, that's great.
That's pretty cool.
So if somebody is not an employee at one of the companies that you support, is there someplace else to go to get a Firewalk just for a day or something, or are you pretty much the game?
No, I'm go to a Tony Robbins seminar. Tony just opened back up. He just did the UK, and he just did Australia, and then he's going to do Dallas in the first week of November, which he invited me to come back out because I haven't been around him or his environment since 2014 when I retired from his organization. Though I do have people call me that want to do it privately. So I've got my cabin up here in the Appalachian Mountains, and so I've got a master bedroom, master bath, and they come up, they spend a couple of days, and a lot of times there's a lot more going on than, once they get up here and I talk to them. I'll typically take them through the board break Firewalk, and then I also take them through the arrow break glass walk. The arrow breaks where you put the arrow here in the soft spot of your neck, and you put it up against the wall and you step through and break it.
Either you break the arrow or it goes through your throat.
Well, I get asked that, right? They're like, could you tell us a little bit about the physics of that?
Did you make sure that the arrowhead is a little on the dull side?
Well, yeah.
More often than not.
We do have a special arrow for that.
It's been great having you on the show. We've got more Passage to Profit coming up, but we do definitely need to go to a commercial break, though. So we'll be right back after this. Welcome back, everybody. It's Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. And we just really had an off-the-charts awesome discussion.
Really interesting.
Dave
Like,
Albin,
this stuff fascinates me.
Yeah, I mean, who'd have thought? I mean, I'm kind of pumped to do my own firewalking right now.
Well,
But
we could just go stay at Dave's house and do it there.
I don't know if he'll have us. If he'll have us.
I think it costs a little bit of money though.
Come on.
More than just a little.
Yeah, just a little bit more. Okay, well, we are at one of my favorite parts of the show, which is where Elizabeth gets to show off her projects. So, Elizabeth, what have you been up to in the entrepreneurial world?
Well, first of all, for those of you who have heard this before, I have a podcast, another podcast with Danielle Woolley. It's called the Jersey Podcats podcast, where we talk about cats. And we have people come on the podcast and talk about issues with their cats, products they've made for cats, different things about cats. And a lot of them have really interesting backgrounds too. So they talk about their backgrounds a little bit.
So, did you ever think about having cats do firewalks? I mean, we didn't even ask Dave if he'd ever done an animal firewalk.
Well, I was doing a glass walk here one time, and I had a private people, and I had the glass walk out on my deck, and my whippet dog went doop 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 and walked right across the glass. So, but no firewalk yet.
No, we
Sorry,
have
I
not.
didn't mean to interrupt you.
That was a good story. So we do have stories about people, and the interesting thing is that we actually do get a fair number of men that come on this Jersey podcast, which is, you don't really think of men as liking cats that much, but men do like cats. They don't like to talk about how they like cats usually, but
I like cats.
I like cats.
Cats. So it's fun because we get different people. We have interesting conversations. We keep it kind of short. It's only 20 minutes because we know
But
people
that's
don't.
kind of the optimum length for a podcast, as I understand it, right?
I think so. And we actually did have a monumental experience. We had somebody come to us through his publicist. So that was
Oh.
pretty cool for our little podcast.
Oh, that's great.
And Danielle is excellent, and she knows a lot about cats, and she's always hilarious.
And
She
so-
is absolutely hilarious.
So where can our listeners find the Jersey Podcats podcast?
Yes, it's the Jersey Podcats, Podcats, Jersey Podcats podcast, because we're from New Jersey.
And what else do you have going on?
My bigger project is Blue Streak Directory. So it's a B2B directory of businesses, but it's a video directory. And I have some software now that can help people make 30-second pitch videos. And that's going to be their profile on the directory. And I'm doing B2B businesses, and I'm kind of focusing in on coaches because I feel like they'll be more comfortable on video, and media people because they'll be more comfortable on video. So I have the software, they're hooking it up to my website. So my website is getting close to being finished, I hope. But also this weekend, Richard and I are going to a conference that a good friend of ours holds twice a year now.
Mm-hmm.
Her name is Lisa Askeles, and it's the AOE conference here in New Jersey. And I'm going to have a table there and see if I can convince people to record their 30-second pitch. And
You won't have to twist too many arms. Your natural charm will come through.
no, it's kind of scary for people. So I think maybe I should, if you can't do a 30-second pitch on video, maybe you should go do a firewalk and come back.
That'll be our new firewalk him. Go ahead, firewalk this guy. Get your situation straight. So
About me, I'm really excited. I don't know. Can I say this on air? So
I don't know what you're going to say.
Richard and I are going to be grandparents in March.
Oh, we can say that.
Yeah.
I don't think our kids want us to say that, but we can.
We can say it.
We can. Say
And so Courtney's company, Solobotoys, really intrigued me a lot. These are toys for kids, but they're not your normal toys. So I'm going to let her talk about how they're different and why they're so great for kids. So welcome, Courtney.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. So Solobo, our tagline is play simply, learn exceptionally. And that's really what we try to do. We try the toys that we have, I designed myself, and I designed them because I noticed that my kids would get really just like bored with the like super busy, loud, colorful toys. And then I like started like making toys out of like cardboard boxes and stuff like that. And they like loved it. So that's kind of where a lot of it came from. And, a lot of inspiration that I have comes from my own kids. And then I also like thought back to how I learned when I was a kid, and how just like the most simple environments is where I learned the most. And that's what lasted the most. So that's really the essence of what I've tried to infuse into our business, is just simplicity, but also like an incredible learning environment.
That sounds great. I've been to your website and the toys really are super cool. But you designed all of these yourself? Is that?
So the very first toys that we launched was our emotions coin drop and our learn and drop, and I designed both of those. The puzzles I selected. I wanted them to fit my vision. They weren't something that I specifically designed. They were like the design that I chose, and it was just like something that I worked with the manufacturer. But our main two toys, yeah, I designed them completely myself. I had never designed anything like that ever before. So that was a really cool like challenge. Like I challenged myself to do it, and then here we are now.
Wow.
Right. Well, and I looked at your website too, and I really like that you have little discs with faces and the emotions that go with the faces, but also you had one where a baby, like it's sitting up. I don't know if it can even is old enough to walk it. It's just putting cards into a slot. And the reason I like that so much is because it's something they can do and they can feel like they accomplished something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even with, it's funny because a lot of people ask me, they're like, well, what's more popular, the emotions coin drop or the learn and drop, which the learn and drop is with the flashcards. And I'm like, well, it depends on who it is. And it's pretty much like right there, like next to each other, 50-50. But I've found that it just depends on how the people see the toys. So like somebody could see the toys as like, this is an incredible opportunity to like stick cards in the box. And some people could see that and be like, well, why do we stick cards in the box? So something that we actually recently started doing is we work with a lot of pediatric specialists. And so I gathered like a ton of activities from all of them and just like condensed it all into a card. So every toy that goes out now goes out with a card with recommendations from these pediatric specialists.
And what age groups do your toys serve?
So this is the interesting part. So when we originally launched, it was 12 months and up. But it quickly turned into something that I didn't expect. And I have like a good example is I have like a licensed marriage family therapist. She tells me she uses it with like 6-year-olds and even older than that. And I actually had a speech therapist recommend that we like take the toy itself and then also pair it with like paper that's the same color. And then you can use it for even older kids. And the same thing with the flashcards and the box, like you can use it to like any age. So it's really become more open-ended than I'd originally hoped it would be, but it's proven to be way further than I expected. So I could say even going up to 10, 12. It just kind of depends on the person.
Yeah. I mean, for our listeners, Courtney's toys are so different than so many of the toys that are available now. If you went to like Target or Walmart or something, where all of those toys are toys based on characters in Disney movies and all these other things. And to me, it's kind of interesting because a child who is deciding on what toy to play with, on the one hand, if they're influenced by a movie or they like a particular cartoon character, that's one source of motivation. But if they're playing with a simple toy that doesn't have sort of that same kind of oomph behind it or notoriety, I guess, is that kind of different, do you think, for the child between playing with the two toys?
I think it depends. I think that like I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't have toys like that at my house for my kids, because I totally do. My kids are like obsessed with the number blocks, and there's so many toys that we have that are like number blocks toys, like this like Netflix show. So it's like when I look at my kids and I see my kids playing with a toy like that, they love it. But I have found that they're less likely to play with it longer. It honestly depends, but because a lot of those toys are designed for that use and that use only. It kind of limits the child to that use. Whereas like if you have a toy that's more open-ended, then they could use it for a bunch of different uses. And if they get tired of one, they can do something different. So it's really that like longevity difference. And it's so true that every child is different anyway. And having toys that are like, this is how you play with it, that's it, end up being a little bit harder to appeal to a vast majority of children.
Right. I think you're walking a fine line with toys in that you want them to be interested, but not overstimulated. I think a lot of the toys, like the mainstream toys, are overstimulating. So I think these simpler ones probably are better, especially right before bed. Right? I mean, you're not trying to calm them down.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, when I was growing up, there weren't as many toys available, and if you had them, you kept them a long time, and you just like a cardboard box was this like fantastic that the washing machine came in was like an instant port,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it was kind of
So,
different.
so I want to see if Dave has a comment or question.
Yeah, let's see, Dave, do you have a comment?
Well, first of all, congratulations on the grandchild coming your
thank you.
way. I can tell you, having two myself, there's a lot of truth to this idea that if I'd have known how great grandkids were going to be, I'd have had them first. So I liked what you said about the overstimulation. Unfortunately, I haven't been to your website. I'm going to go look because I've got two grandkids and I'm like, okay, what can I get for them? But I'm like what Richard said, you know, I came from a place where you got a Tonka truck when you were a kid and you had that thing for, 20 years. I mean, it never went away, where a lot of toys today break and they go away. But the overstimulation too, I think that's really important. So
Yeah.
I really like that they're not.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, I still have toy horses from when I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
Play with them
Yeah,
anymore.
she doesn't play with them though. Those things get really boring, but
So I gotta ask you, Courtney. So how are you promoting your company? Like, are you selling at Walmart? Are you selling on Amazon? Are you selling just on your website?
Yeah, so the main place that we sell is on Amazon. That was something that we quickly found out was really just where people go to turn for stuff like toys for kids, especially educational toys. So we quickly decided to sell on Amazon, and it's going really well. We have made a community on Instagram, and that's really primarily where people find us. And we have been able to come across some of the most incredible stories of how people have used our toys. And like I said, pediatric specialists, they have like backed our toys from the beginning. Before we even released the toys to market, we had a speech language pathologist test them with her clients. And so like having that has also been really beneficial, and people love to hear how toys can be used for child development. They just love to hear that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
so when you went into business and you created your toys first, how did you have them made?
Yeah, so this is actually something that I have spent a lot of time doing research on. So I didn't know anything of how this stuff worked prior to designing the toys. I have my master's in film producing, and there are some aspects of film producing that work with producing a physical product, because if you think about it, a film is a product. So that definitely helped me like narrow in my search, but I quickly learned how to work with manufacturers. And I did like a lot of stuff on YouTube, trying to watch things about tutorials of how to do things. Like that's just the reality of trying to understand how this stuff runs. I didn't find a whole lot of like resources or classes on how to do this. I just kind of figured it out along the way.
So I think that's really important for entrepreneurs who are wanting to start a business, is the resourcefulness, because there's not always just a book out there that says these are the steps that you follow and you can have your toy made, right? You have to do a lot of research, you have to do a lot of comparison shopping, and then there are good people to work with and people who are not so good, right?
Yeah.
And you can't, it's hard sometimes to tell like who are the good people to work with, right?
Yeah.
Did you find that? I mean, are the toys made in the United States? Or are they made overseas? Or
They're made overseas. I did, I think about 10 interviews before selecting our first manufacturer. And with that, like they sent us samples, and I really like stress when like I'm making decisions about people to work with. I really like rely on like people's vibes. Like I know that that's like a really like catchy thing to say, but like I really do like look at their communication and look at how like they're communicating with me and like their timeliness, and just like if I get a good like well-rounded positive experience from them, then I'm more likely to work with them because I know that like we have this trust built. And that's really what I looked for when I originally started interviewing manufacturers, is just that like good quality, like relationship, that it wasn't like they're working for me, I'm working for them. We were just working together to make it happen.
Well, that's great.
That's like our relationship with Noah Fleischman, who produces this show. So I'll tell you, he loves the show. We get the best product from him. Really.
That's really,
So
and then, so what are your future plans? I mean, are you happy with the business as it is now? Do you want to grow it? I mean, kind of, where do you see your business in another couple of years?
Yeah, so we've actually had a lot of growth in the past couple months. I have just like, I think it was a week ago, I released a children's book, something that I wrote and illustrated, and it's called All the Ways Sterling Communicates. And so that's something that we have been really like educating our viewers about. And we have a new toy coming out when we go to the toy fair at the end of September. And that's super exciting. I designed that one as well. So that'll be the first time anybody has ever seen it aside from like our testers that we have. And so we have, you know, expansion. We hope to get into more retail spaces. We launched a podcast called Neuroplay. And then I also launched a kind of adjacent company with a speech language pathologist that is actually like helping people who have toy companies. So a lot of the knowledge that I've gained, like I've been able to do consultations with people, and that's been really cool too.
Wow.
So really just like, you know, getting our toys out there more, and then like also supporting other people. Like I'm very passionate about giving back and supporting other things outside of myself. So that's really the hope for the future.
That's amazing, and
Yeah.
that you've got so much on the table. It sounds like you're really taking off. You does mention on your website that you're autistic. Is that
Yeah.
right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it has kind of been, the way I describe it is like a domino effect in my family. My brother, you can actually, it's okay that I talk about this because he put it on a podcast. So, but my brother was diagnosed first. My brother was diagnosed as an adult, and he's my older brother. So he's about 3 or 4 years older than me. And when he was diagnosed, then it kind of sent like, it was when my son was, he was about 1.5 years. And so then we kind of understood some of the things that were showing with him. And then he got diagnosed a few months later. And then I think my mom got diagnosed after that. And then I got diagnosed after that. And so it's just kind of been like this domino effect in our family.
Wow.
But it has been unbelievably helpful to understand like how our brains work. And so that's been really cool knowing and just getting to adjust our perspectives on so much. It's been really helpful.
So are there ways that you communicate then that you know, or understand things that knowing about autism is that's kind of deepened your ability to communicate or understand things?
Yeah, I would say that like my experience as a child and my experience as an adult, like it really has impacted my ability to create the toys that I have, because there are so many children that learn in these different ways that there aren't a lot of toys curated towards them. And like, I'll give you a great example. My kids use something called an AAC device, and it's an app on an iPad, but it's basically how they talk. And that's actually what my children's book is about. It's about using an AAC device, and it shows the progression of using the device and then eventually implementing American Sign Language and also spoken language. So our kids actually, with our toys specifically, they will use their devices to play with the toys. And that's something that I don't ever see with other companies, because it's not, this, a lot of the toys, exactly what we're talking about, they're overstimulating, but a lot of autistic children get overstimulated easier. And I know I get overstimulated easier. So like kind of taking all of that and bundling up into just how we do what we do, it's changed so much. It's really good.
That's excellent. So what is your website?
Yeah, so it's solobotoys.com. It's SOLOBOTOYS.com.
And can people buy directly from your website?
They can. And there's actually an integration between our website and Amazon. So if somebody wants to buy from Amazon, they can actually buy from Amazon on our website.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Courtney. What an incredible product. And it is something brand new. If you have little ones, I highly encourage you to take a look at it. Solobotoys.com. And now we are on to our next presenter, Alex Neist, with such a cool name for his product. I love it. It's called Hostage Tape.
I almost wanted to say it first, okay, but come on.
Well, say it. You could say it.
Hostage tape.
Okay, Alex.
Gotta get some grit in there. Hostage tape.
Hostage tape. Okay, Dave, do you want to say it?
I'm not going to mess it up. No, let you guys do it.
So, Alex,
Only trained professionals.
Alex, tell us all about it.
Yeah, you got it. So I'm sure the first thing that everybody's thinking right now is, why would you call it hostage tape? Right. So I'm going to get to that in a moment. Now, so what is hostage tape? Hostage tape, we've really built it as it's the strongest, comfortable mouth tape on the planet. Okay.
Mouth tape?
It's mouth tape. So what you're seeing on my face right now is I've got a nose strip. So this is actually our secondary product. So when people go to the site and they buy mouth tape, we give them an add-on, an upsell to be able to use our nose strips too. Because really when you're talking about keeping your mouth shut, then people's minds, their questions always go, what about my nose? Because I've got a deviated septum, or maybe I have trouble breathing out my nose. So then we thought, well, let's come up with maybe a cooler way to have a nose strip.
So what do people use hostage tape for?
So when they sleep.
When they sleep. Oh, okay.
Right. So when you go to sleep, here's what comes down to. So when you sleep, as we get older, right, we tend to sleep with our mouth open, right? And that's not good at all. We want to be sleeping with our mouth shut.
I know, right? I definitely do.
Yeah. So we should keep our mouths shut when we're sleeping.
Shut your
there are other
mouth.
Times when we should also keep our mouths shut, but we won't go there.
Maybe. Right. So that's the issue. The issue comes down to just keeping your mouth shut, right? We want to be breathing through our nose most of the time, except when we're talking or we're eating, right? So now let me get back to why did we call it hostage tape? Okay. So there's two really core reasons why we did it. One was we're tapping into this core emotion that people feel by not being able to get sleep because of their partner or because of themselves. They feel held hostage and they don't know what to do. Okay. Now, secondly, okay, and the other side of that coin is, so funny story is when I first discovered mouth taping, I just went and I bought some just really cheap stuff. I would put it on my mouth at night and I would warn my kids, hey, I'm going to warn you, I'm going to put some tape on my mouth. It's going to look like I'm being held hostage, so don't freak out.
Did you get the big silver duct tape, or did you,
no,
the masking tape, or?
So I was inspired by, James Nestor wrote a best-selling book called Breath, and he talks about mouth taping, and you could just get 3M micropore tape, surgical tape. You can get it really anywhere on Amazon or at a Walgreens or something, right? And so I just bought some of that and tried it. It's really uncomfortable. It doesn't always work for everybody, especially if you have facial hair. So when I did that, right? You look like you're being held hostage, right? So it's kind of the joke when you do it. You look really goofy. You look
like
funny.
you've been kidnapped or something.
You totally do.
Okay.
And so in this era of like liquid death, right? If you guys know what liquid death is, it's this up and coming brand who they've made their name on flipping marketing on its head and going the other direction with it and getting attention. And so we said, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this concept of hostage tape and lean into those things I talked about, but we know that it's going to get people's attention. It's going to inspire men to start the conversation, to think, what the heck is this? Right. And anybody that sees it remembers it. And at the end of the day,
why just men though? I mean, I would think that all genders would be interested in hostage tape, right?
Well, so, okay.
Do you have like a ladies version or a guy's version or? Well,
certainly from my point of view, I leaned into the demographic that I resonate with was, all right, for most of us men, the issue with this in general is just keeping our mouth shut, but also having a tape that feels comfortable, that's strong enough, right? And so we said everything out there.
You need extra strength mouth tape for men. Yeah.
So the issue was is like when you read about it, a lot of people will say just use a little strip or just a little bit of gentle tape. But the problem is that doesn't work. That doesn't hold for a lot of us men, right? That have maybe strong jaws. We just pop that right open. So it's not good enough. That might work for some people. Doesn't work for everybody.
Come on, we were Alex, like, we have to tease you on this.
Yeah,
of course, right? I walked right into that one, right?
You're a target now. Yeah,
totally.
See, like I can see how the name would appeal more to men because they're like always watching the Bruce Willis movies and
I don't really know for sure, but men may be snoring more than women. I don't know if there's any statistics.
There are.
I don't want to go there.
Statistically, like 75% of them are men. Like it's mostly men, but certainly women are too. But also on the flip side of it, you could look at it and say, well, women would be buying this for their husbands too. And they certainly do, right? We just wanted to make sure we were leaning into, and we were marketing to this segment of men that, quite honestly, men are certainly cheaper to market to, right? CPMs for women. Oh, I'm getting too technical, right? The cost of advertising for women, right? Middle-aged women is a heck of a lot more expensive than it is to men. So we said, we're going to lean into that. We want to lean into men, who we are, and make something masculine that you don't see. You do not see this kind of branding out there on a product like this for men. And so we did it, and it's taken off.
Yeah, so I see Dave wants to say something.
Yeah, Dave, take that hostage tape off and say what you're going to say.
I mean, I'm an empty nester. And so it's me and my German Shepherd. So I don't know, I would like to try it because, I read something one time where they said the average human being swallows like 1,000 spiders in their lifetime. Simply because their mouth is open, and so I'll let Alex speak to that. But yeah, I mean,
that's another variation on the Firewalk theme. You can eat spiders and spider walk at the same time. Or
good idea, spider walk. I like that. Yeah.
No, that's my trademark. That was AI generated.
Yes, there you go. It's yours. No worries.
Oh, Lord. Well, but it works with facial hair, right?
It does. Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the really key differentiators is that with this tape. So we designed it in a way that it's going to work with facial hair. It's going to be able to still adhere to whiskers, right? All of that, which most men have some sort of facial hair. And so that's always the first question men will ask is, well, I can't mouth tape because I've got facial hair. Does this work with facial hair? So
rest assured that I guess it does. So, but does this basically stops snoring, right? So even if you're sleeping by yourself, you'd still want to try this just because people wake themselves up when they snore?
What happens is so the more important thing is mouth breathing, right? So when you keep your mouth shut, it can reduce and stop snoring for many people. It doesn't always stop snoring for everybody because some people will still make noises in their nasal passage. It still happens, right?
So there's
the core
no snorers.
Yeah, it's absolutely,
that was a thing.
Yeah, it's absolutely a thing. But really, the most important thing is that we are not breathing through our mouth, right? We're
Mm.
breathing through our nose. So that's at the end of the day, the most important piece of why the tape exists and what it's trying to do.
Got
Yeah,
it.
because I think to Dave's point, you don't know what's going in your mouth at night when you're asleep.
And are you getting more?
With hostage tape? Yeah.
So,
Um,
Alex, are you getting more oxygen that way too, in terms of
Yeah.
breathing the correct way? So that's
Yeah,
going to make
you-
a big difference in and of itself.
Yeah, you get the studies say that you get up to almost 20% more oxygen, and it
Wow.
really simply comes down to this. It's the relationship of CO2 to oxygen. And what most people don't understand, I mean, even I didn't understand it until I learned it, was that we need CO2 in our body in order to take in oxygen into our muscles. So if we're mouth breathing and we're exhaling too much CO2, right, and that's leaving our body, then we have less ability to take that oxygen into our muscles. There's a 1-for-1 exchange of CO2 to oxygen, right? So think about that. Now, if I shut my mouth and the amount of CO2 in my body is at a good amount, now the oxygen I am breathing is able to go into my muscles, right?
Oh, that's interesting.
Fascinating.
So that's
Yeah.
another reason not to be a mouth breather.
Right. So-
And
Exactly.
but how are you selling this? What's your main channel of commerce for this?
Yeah. So we purposely did not go on Amazon, right?
Okay.
In fact, Amazon actually, they just banned mouth tape. So we can't even get on Amazon
Oh,
right now.
really?
I mean, we're in the
Uh-huh.
process of trying to work with them on it, because ironically our tape is actually FDA approved. We have a class 1 FDA approval on the tape,
Mhm.
but we sell primarily on Shopify. So we've got a Shopify.
Oh.
People go to the site and we spend a lot of money on Facebook marketing.
Okay.
And so you also have, though, you're wearing right now. So
Yes.
for our listeners who want to go to our YouTube channel, Passage to Profit Show, and they want to see Alex with a piece of tape over his nose, that also helps, right? That
Yeah.
helps. And
So
it matches the mouth tape, right? It's
it-
color
it-
coordinated. You
it
can
totally
really
does.
have
So
like
mouth tape's gonna look like this,
have a
right?
whole
Mhm.
nighttime ensemble. Yeah.
Just like that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
okay.
the when people look at the mouth tape, they go, one of their next natural questions is, well, what about my nose? What if I've got a deviated septum or I'm having trouble breathing out of it? So we just figured, like, all right, as a business, how can we increase the order value while also giving people a really valuable product, because now they trust us. And we just thought, all right, well, let's take a nose strip and make it look really cool with the same branding that we have.
That's great.
Yeah.
What
so-
about earplugs? I mean, would
Yeah,
that be like a
that's
next generation?
It totally
of
could be. We
product?
talked about it. Yeah, we talked about it. It's certainly in the realm of the things that we want to do. We're trying to find all these different ways that we can help improve sleep in a very non-invasive way.
Yeah, I like that. So, do you have any testimonials from anybody that's used your product?
Oh, yes. So if you go to honchestape.com and go to the reviews,
Mm-hmm.
go there and look at that. We've got over maybe 2,500 reviews at this point, but
Wow.
a lot of reviews. And I think the most common term that you're going to see, and Dave actually mentioned it earlier, is life-changing. When people discover mouth taping for the first time, most people describe it as being life-changing for them, because now they're actually getting sleep, right? And sleep is probably the most valuable thing that we're all getting or not getting that can really make the biggest impact on our lives on a daily basis. And so think about that, right? If you're getting bad sleep and it's stacking over and over and over again, and then when you finally start to get good sleep, it really jolts you and you realize how poor you've been sleeping up to that point.
Wow, that's excellent. Well, again, the website is hostagetape.com. We had come to the end of this segment. Thank you very much, Alex. This sounds like it would make a great holiday gift.
It
For
does.
your mother-in-law.
Something in the guest room suite. Anyway, listeners, you are listening to Passage to Profit, the Road to Entrepreneurship with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. Our special guest was Dave Albin, Firewalker extraordinaire, amazing. And don't go away because we still have a little bit left. We'll be right back.
Back when I was in junior high school, the one thing I understood the least was the one thing no teacher was ever going to discuss. It was that tiny little room at the end of the 3rd floor with the big wooden door and the sign that said Teacher's Lounge. Okay, it's a lounge for teachers to get together once in a while throughout the day and talk amongst one another. I can understand that. But why did they have to hide from us? As I got older, I understood. It had nothing to do with anything personal. It was just part of the larger Judeo-Christian foundation of division between authority and disciple, teacher and pupil, manager and employee, if you will. And it's a system that's worked very well over the years. I mean, think about it. How much command or intimidation can you instill in anyone if they can actually see you eating or walking into a restroom? It's a system that's worked very well for a very long time. But can that system actually be on the way to changing? With more and more people independently becoming their own entrepreneur and boss, so to speak, working directly for the people, maybe we could find ourselves just breaking bread a little more often amongst one another communally. And as my mother once said, we all flush in the same direction.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Passage to Profit. I mean, it's been a really fun show. I've had the time of my life. And if you haven't had a chance to hear the whole show, if you're only tuning in late, you can find us on our podcast that'll be released tomorrow, anywhere where you get your podcasts, and also our YouTube channel, and also our social media handles too. So we're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So check out Passage to Profit Show there and learn more about us.
What's Twitter?
Oh, shoot. I forgot. So that's everybody forget you ever heard the word Twitter. It's the word X now.
Yeah, X.
X.
Okay. Well, now it's time for my question.
Yes, it is.
So I'm going to ask Dave Albin, firewalkadventures.com. Dave, can you share a favorite quote or mantra that has guided you in your entrepreneurial endeavors?
Absolutely. Stop looking for heroes and be one.
Ooh, I love that. Ooh.
And who
Okay.
said that?
Oh, you made that one up
You
yourself.
did. Well,
I did.
I think that's a very good mantra. I'm going to use that
Me too.
Cool.
with his permission.
Absolutely. Of course.
Courtney Peebles with Solobotoys.com. Can you share a favorite quote or mantra that has guided you in your entrepreneurial endeavors?
Yeah. So let me preface by saying that my mom growing up always said the Serenity Prayer, and I truthfully didn't know what it was until for whatever reason, like about a year ago, I started like having this like quote run through my head. I was like, what is that from? And it actually ended up being like the Serenity Prayer that I listened to my mom say all the time growing up. But there's like the little nuggets in it that's talking about like accepting the things that you can't change and like having the wisdom to know when like you can and you should try. And that's really what I've been trying to think of, like, because there's so many moving parts in business. It's just like kind of picking your battles and deciding which one's most important and then just leaving the ones that you shouldn't fool with.
Excellent.
Oh, love it.
Very profound. Yeah.
So Alex Neist with hostagetape.com. Can you share a favorite quote or mantra that has guided you in your entrepreneurial endeavors?
You can accomplish anything you want. You just have to be willing to work for it.
That
Nice.
is so
That is-
true.
that is-
It's that work.
It's
that trips people
willing
up.
to work is that's the one that keeps.
Okay.
My parents taught me that. So
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
that's so true.
Bravo.
That's great.
Richard Gearhart, owner of Gearhart Law, first full service patent, trademark, and copyright law firm. Can you share a favorite quote or mantra that has guided you in your entrepreneurial endeavors?
Well, absolutely. We were talking today about Oprah Winfrey and her really life-changing moment when she was doing the Firewalk. But one thing that she said that stuck with me is that you are responsible for your own success. And I think that that is a really good thing to keep in mind, because if it's going to happen, you're the one that's going to have to do it.
Yes, unfortunately.
Although I've been trying to get you to do it for a long time.
This theme of hard work through this whole. And so for my favorite quote or mantra that has guided me in my entrepreneurial endeavors, I think it's the phrase never give up. Because I think it's so easy to give up and to feel discouraged at times and to say, oh my gosh, this is never going to work. Like trying to get the software onto my website. But if you give up, then you're done, right?
That's right. That's right.
And I'm not ready to be done with
Yeah.
everything I'm doing. So this has been great. Thank you all.
Bravo.
So do you want to run through the show one more time?
Let's go through the show and who was on the show and how to get hold of them. So if you are interested in firewalking, or if you're not interested, watch Oprah do it and then become interested. Dave Albin, Firewalk Instructor, and he does it for entrepreneurs. He does it for companies. And his website is firewalkadventures.com.
He's a hot guy.
Yeah, I'm stoked that you said that.
I mean, the jokes just write themselves.
And for children ages 1 year and up, we don't know how far up, but obviously quite a ways from what Courtney's been seeing. Courtney Peebles has Solobotoys.com. That's SOLOBO toys.com. Also a book, All the Way Sterling Communicates, and a podcast, Aeroplay.
Yeah, I mean, and she's got some really amazing toys. So if you need to entertain a child, whether it's yours or your grandchild or somebody else's child, you really got to check out her website.
Right. And then if you are a mouth breather or know a mouth breather who could use a nice little gift,
But only when
tape.
sleeping. It doesn't work with daytime mouth breathers. But
So Alex Neist has hostage tape, hostagetape.com. And the benefits are many. You have to go to his website or listen to his interview to hear how really getting yourself to breathe through your nose while you're sleeping is so much better than breathing through your mouth.
and his next product will be wristtape.com.
Will be what?
Wristtape.com.
Don't let bad sleep hold you.
What? Are you like
You can edit that out. No, I
You're
obviously,
sleep-deprived?
I think I am. All right.
So-
Well, I'd like to say thanks to everybody for being on the show. And I'd also like to say thank you to the Passage to Profit team, Noah Fleischman and Alicia Morrissey, who really keep it all together for us. And if you do have patent, trademark, or copyright needs, make sure you visit the Gearhart Law website at www.gearhartlaw.com. And you can schedule a free consultation with me. While the information on this program is believed to be correct, never take a legal step without first contacting your legal professional. And that's it for us, Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back again next week with another episode of Passage to Profit.